I sat at my desk just outside Marcus Stewart's office, fingers hovering above the keyboard, still reeling from what had just happened. After 8 years at Stewart and Palmer Consulting, 8 years of holding this place together, of knowing every client, every contract, every last detail, I'd finally asked for the promotion I'd more than earned. And Marcus laughed. My name is Sarah Chen. I'm 35 years old, and according to the man who runs this firm, I'm just a secretary. What Marcus doesn't know, what none of them know, is that for the past 3 years, I've been quietly building something of my own. And today, everything changes. I checked the time, 9:47 a.m. 13 minutes until a conference call, not one for Stewart and Palmer, but for Chen Consulting, my consulting firm. I stood smooth my charcoal pencil skirt and walked to the break room. No one looked up. No one ever did. I was part of the background, the one who made coffee, ran meetings, kept things from falling apart. The break room was empty. I pulled out my personal laptop, the one I never let anyone here see, and connected to my mobile hotspot. As the call loaded, Marcus's words echoed in my head. A promotion? He'd scoffed, glancing up from his golf magazine. To what exactly? Account management, I said, my voice calm even as my heart raced. I already handle most of the client communication, and I have an MBA from an online MBA, he cut in, which you earned while working as a secretary. Sarah, you're great at what you do, the coffee, the scheduling, the neatness. But account management? That's a different caliber, you understand. The laptop chimed. I clicked to accept the video call, and James Wilson appeared, CEO of Wilson Manufacturing, one of the Pacific Northwest's largest industrial equipment companies. Sarah, he said, smiling, I reviewed your proposal. Very impressive. Your approach to supply chain optimization is exactly what we need. I smiled back, this time with full confidence. Thank you, James. Based on our projections, we can cut operational costs by at least 22% within the first year. Call me James, and yes, we agree. The board approved the contract this morning. We'd like to move forward with Chen Consulting as our primary logistics partner. My chest tightened. My first 7-figure contract. That's fantastic news, James. I'll send the finalized documents this afternoon. When the call ended, I leaned back, letting the reality sink in. Chen Consulting, my so-called side project, had just closed a $1.2 million deal. The company I built during stolen hours and sleepless nights was about to become a force. My phone buzzed. Marcus wanted his coffee. I shut my laptop, slid it into my bag, and headed to the office kitchen. His usual, double-shot Americano, extra hot, 1 sugar. As I stepped into his office, I heard his voice through the door. No, Bill, you'll love this. My secretary, Sarah, asked for a promotion today. To account management. Can you believe it? I set the coffee on his desk without a word. He didn't look up. The rest of the day crawled. I scheduled meetings, prepped documents, kept the wheels turning. At 5:30, I began my nightly routine, prepping for the next day. Marcus finally emerged at 6:15, briefcase in hand. Sarah, I need the Wilson Manufacturing proposal polished for tomorrow's meeting. Big potential client. Make sure it's perfect. I kept my expression neutral. It's in your inbox. I sent it this morning with the market analysis and revenue projections. Good. Be in early. Meeting's at 9. I'll need you to set up the presentation. Of course, I said. Though you should know, Wilson Manufacturing has already. Great, thanks, he said, already turning for the elevator. I watched him go, then turned back to my computer and drafted an email to my attorney. It was time for phase 2. That night, in my home office, I reviewed the final contract from Wilson Manufacturing. My signature, Sarah Chen, CEO, felt bold and overdue. 3 years of hustle, and this was just the beginning. With the Wilson deal locked, I updated our timeline. Now I could approach the other companies I'd been courting, firms that had hesitated to sign with a small player. But now I wasn't small anymore. A message pinged on my phone. David, my younger brother and Chen Consulting's lead software developer. Did they sign? I grinned and replied, yes. 3 dots, then, holy shit, sis, we're really doing this. We really were. David had believed from day one, quitting his tech job to help me build the platform that set us apart. He saw what I saw, that legacy firms like Stewart and Palmer were dinosaurs, blind to the future. I worked until almost midnight. Then I set my alarm for 5 a.m., the start of another double shift. Chen Consulting before dawn, Stewart and Palmer by day. But only for 2 more weeks. 2 more weeks until everything changed. The next morning, I arrived early, 8:15 sharp, to prep for the Wilson meeting. I arranged the conference room just how Marcus liked it. Water pitchers spaced evenly, handouts neatly stacked, thermostat at 72. At 8:45, Marcus breezed in. He didn't even glance at the setup. By 9, the other execs had filed in. John Palmer, Victoria Hayes, the senior account team. Marcus took his place at the head of the table, proposal in hand. They waited. At 9:10, still no sign of Wilson Manufacturing. Marcus poked his head out. "Sarah, are they late? Any calls?" I pulled up my inbox. They emailed yesterday. They've decided to go in a different direction. He blinked. Why wasn't I told? I tried to let you know last night, but you'd already left. His jaw clenched. Get them on the phone. Now. I dialed, put the call on speaker. A receptionist picked up. Wilson Manufacturing. How may I help you? Hi, this is Sarah from Stewart and Palmer. May I speak with Mr. Wilson regarding our proposal? A pause. Oh, Sarah, Mr. Wilson is currently meeting with Chen Consulting to review implementation timelines. Would you like to leave a message? I glanced at Marcus. His face was turning crimson. No message. Thank you. I ended the call. Marcus stared at me. Chen Consulting. Who the hell is that? And why are they meeting with our client? I met his gaze calmly. They're a new firm, focused on integrated tech solutions and supply chain efficiency. Very forward-thinking, from what I hear. He straightened his tie. I want a full report on them. End of day. Of course, I said. He turned and stormed back into the conference room. I watched through the glass as the meeting fell apart. Executives packed up their folders. Victoria lingered, arguing quietly with Marcus. I opened my browser and typed in The homepage featured our platform, our services, our client results. At the bottom, a single photo of me in a sharp blue blazer. Marcus wouldn't scroll that far. He never did. The atmosphere at Stewart and Palmer shifted overnight. Tension pulsed through the hallways like a live wire. Behind Marcus Stewart's closed office door, voices rose and fell, sharp, panicked, accusatory. I didn't need to hear every word to know the topic, Wilson Manufacturing. The one that got away. I kept to my rhythm, scheduling meetings, managing calendars, ensuring everything in the office ticked like clockwork. But underneath the routine, something had changed. Every time my phone buzzed with a new notification from my Chen Consulting email, I felt it, a spark, a reminder that I was building something beyond these walls. On Thursday morning, Marcus summoned me. His desk, usually pristine, was buried under stacks of documents. His tie was loose, his eyes bleary. Not a good sign. Sarah, he said, what have you found on Chen Consulting? I opened my notepad, flipping to a page I prepared in anticipation. They're a relatively new firm, focused on integrated tech solutions for operations and supply chains. Their proprietary platform is getting attention for its efficiency metrics and AI-based forecasting. Yes, he waved impatiently. But who are they? Who's running the show? They keep a low profile, I said evenly. Their leadership team isn't prominently listed. They let results speak for themselves. He leaned back with a sigh, rubbing his temples. Wilson was supposed to be our crown jewel this quarter. Now the board's breathing down my neck. Did you see this coming? Any red flags? I kept my face neutral. Mr. Wilson emphasized innovation in our conversations. Their operations lead specifically mentioned wanting to overhaul legacy systems. And you didn't escalate that to me. I included those notes in my meeting summaries, I said gently. 3 months ago. They're in the shared drive. He didn't respond. We both knew he'd never read them. Fine, he muttered. Keep digging. I want more on Chen Consulting. And get me coffee. As I turned to leave, my phone vibrated, an email from Precision Technologies. They wanted to schedule a meeting to discuss a potential partnership. By the time I delivered Marcus's coffee, he was barking into the phone. I don't care how you do it. Find out who runs Chen Consulting. They didn't just steal Wilson. They're coming after everything. That night, I stayed late. Not unusual, but what I was working on was. I opened my personal laptop and composed a message. To all staff. From Sarah Chen. Subject: Opportunities at Chen Consulting. Dear team, Chen Consulting is expanding, and I believe some of you might be interested in the journey we're building. We specialize in blending traditional consulting with modern tech, and we're looking for like-minded professionals ready to help shape the future of the industry. If you're curious or interested in learning more, I welcome you to reach out directly. Warm regards, Sarah Chen, CEO, Chen Consulting. I hovered for only a second before hitting send. It was a risk, but the time for waiting was over. I knew who was quietly disillusioned. I knew who was ready for more. By the next morning, Marcus was already in the office, unheard of. His shirt was wrinkled, his jaw tense. "Sarah," he barked. "In my office. Now." I walked in, notepad in hand. "Yes, Mr. Stewart." Johnson Electronics. They just informed us they're reviewing consulting options, and guess who reached out to them? Chen Consulting. What the hell is happening? Would you like me to arrange a meeting with their team? Yes, now, and get John and Victoria in here. We need to stop this hemorrhage. As I turned, he added, "And Sarah, I want everything you can dig up on Chen's CEO. There has to be a weakness." "Of course," I said. Back at my desk, my inbox was already filling, responses to last night's email. Analysts, leads, even senior staff. One after another, they expressed curiosity, interest, hope. At lunch, the whispers were louder. Phones buzzed, glances exchanged, conversations cut short as I passed. Marcus paced the hallway like a man watching his empire sink. A message lit up my screen. "David, 3 more S&P apps just came in." Words spreading fast. I allowed myself a quiet smile. Everything was falling into place. 3 years of quiet hustle, of doing more than my job title, of building something that mattered. It was all coming to fruition. At 3:45, Victoria Hayes approached my desk. She looked around, then leaned in. "I got an interesting email last night," she said. "About Chen Consulting." I looked up. "Oh? You wouldn't happen to know anything about that, would you?" I met her gaze evenly. Victoria had always been sharp. One of the few who noticed the details I tucked into meeting notes. One of the few who listened. "What would you like to know?" I asked quietly. She studied me for a long beat, then smiled. "We should grab coffee, off the record." As she walked away, Marcus burst out of his office. "Sarah, why hasn't Johnson Electronics returned our calls?" I followed up. Their assistant said they're no longer interested in a meeting. They've already signed with Chen Consulting. He slammed his palm on my desk, making my pens rattle. "This is absurd. How is this company stealing our clients? What aren't you telling me?" I met his eyes, voice calm. "I'm just a secretary, Mr. Stewart. What could I possibly know?" Something flickered in his expression. Realization. Doubt? Maybe both. He turned abruptly and stormed back into his office, slamming the door. Through the glass, I watched him pace, thumb pressed to his ear. Desperate. But he wouldn't find anything, just what David and I had allowed to be found. We were too careful, too strategic. My phone buzzed again. Another email. This one from Amy, Marcus's own assistant. She'd only been here 3 months, but that was long enough to endure his temper. Long enough to start looking for a way out. I replied with the same message I'd sent the others, a discreet invitation to meet at Chen Consulting HQ the next evening. One by one, the pieces were moving into place. Marcus Stewart was about to learn what a secretary could really do. The next morning, the Stewart and Palmer office simmered with tension, like a powder keg just waiting for the match. The fallout from the Johnson Electronics revelation had left everyone on edge. I arrived at my usual early hour to find 3 senior partners already cloistered in the conference room. Their conversation low, urgent, and intense. My phone buzzed with a message from David. "Conference room is ready for tonight. 28 S&P employees confirmed." I smiled as I read it. 28. 4 senior consultants, 6 IT specialists, 3 from the analytics team. All ready to walk away from Stewart and Palmer. All ready to help build something better at Chen Consulting. At 8:45, Marcus stormed in, looking like he hadn't slept, hair uncombed, tie askew. He didn't say a word as he made a beeline for his office, already dialing before he even closed the door. Through the glass, I watched him gesture wildly as he barked into the phone. At 9:30, a calendar alert popped up on my screen. Emergency all-hands meeting, 10 o'clock a.m. Mandatory attendance. I watched as the staff filed silently into the large conference room, their faces tight with uncertainty. Victoria passed by, meeting my eyes and offering a subtle, knowing nod. We'd had our off-the-record coffee the night before. She'd gotten straight to the point. "You're the CEO of Chen Consulting, aren't you?" When I didn't deny it, she'd smiled. "I should have figured. You've been running Stewart and Palmer for years, just without the title or the paycheck." Now Marcus stood at the front of the room, trying to project control, but his voice lacked conviction. "We've had some setbacks," he began. "Yes, we've lost a few clients. Yes, Chen Consulting has been aggressive. But Stewart and Palmer has been an industry leader for 2 decades. We are not going anywhere." From my place near the back, I saw the skeptical glances exchange around the room. Everyone knew the truth. In consulting, perception is power. And our grip was slipping. "We're making changes," he continued. "Extended hours. More aggressive outreach. Everyone will need to step up. No weak links." Amy, his assistant, sat next to me, clutching her notepad like a lifeline. She'd already RSVP'd for tonight's meeting. After the all-hands, Marcus summoned me to his office. "Clear my schedule for the next 2 days. I need to focus on damage control." He ran a hand through his hair again, now fully vertical. "And get me everything you can on Chen Consulting's leadership. There's something we're missing." I nodded, already. But I didn't go home. Instead, I crossed town to Chen Consulting's real office, a sleek, converted warehouse buzzing with energy. David greeted me in the lobby. "You ready?" he asked, grinning. I adjusted my blazer. "Let's show them what we've built." Inside, the conference room was packed. 28 Stewart and Palmer employees sat in neat rows, faces full of anticipation. Victoria occupied the front row, entirely unsurprised when I stepped up to the podium. "Thank you for being here," I began. "I'm Sarah Chen, CEO of Chen Consulting. Some of you know me as Marcus Stewart's secretary. Others know me as the person who's been quietly managing client accounts and writing proposals behind the scenes." I clicked to the first slide. "What you might not know is that for the past 3 years, I've been building a new kind of firm. One that merges traditional consulting expertise with modern, agile technology. A place where talent is recognized, regardless of title." I shared our vision, our client portfolio, our proprietary software platform, our profit-sharing structure. Every slide, every word was met with growing enthusiasm. When I finished, there was a moment of silence. Then Victoria stood and began to clap. One by one, the others joined her until the room rang with applause. The chew and I ran late. By the time the room cleared, it was nearly 10 p.m. Victoria stayed behind. "Just so you know," she said with a smirk, "Marcus opened that email about Chen Consulting's leadership before I left the office. He was staring at his screen like he'd seen a ghost." I smiled. Tomorrow should be fun. Marcus was waiting at my desk the next morning. "You," he said, barely restraining his anger. "It was you this whole time." I set down my bag. "Good morning, Mr. Stewart. Coffee?" "Don't play dumb with me," he snapped. "You're the CEO of Chen Consulting. You've been stealing our clients, our people." "I haven't stolen anything," I said, voice calm. "Our clients chose us. Our employees chose us because they want to be valued. The same way I wanted to be valued when I asked for that promotion you promised and forgot." He paled. "But you were just a secretary?" I finished. "Yes. The secretary who ran your meetings, prepped your reports, managed your accounts, and held this firm together while you took credit and long lunches." I watched the weight of it hit him. He slumped slightly, the fight draining from his frame. "The board meeting's in an hour," he muttered. "They're going to want answers." "They will," I said. "But I won't be there to help you prepare." I picked up my bag. I quit, effective immediately. I turned to go, then paused. "Oh, and Marcus, I left 8 years' worth of documentation on your desk. You might want to start reading, though honestly, it's probably too late." 3 months later, I sat in my corner office at Chen Consulting, sunlight pouring in through floor-to-ceiling windows as I reviewed our quarterly reports. The numbers exceeded every projection. Since my departure from Stewart and Palmer, we hadn't just captured their top clients, we'd attracted their best people. Victoria Hayes now served as our Chief Strategy Officer. With her expertise and vast network, we'd expanded into new markets ahead of schedule. The former Stewart and Palmer employees who joined us were thriving, finally empowered to contribute at their full potential, no longer constrained by outdated hierarchies or invisible ceilings. My phone buzzed. A message from David. Turn on channel 8. Now. I reached for the remote and flicked on the wall-mounted screen just in time to see Marcus Stewart at a press conference. His once pristine appearance had unraveled, creased suit, weary eyes, shoulders slumped under the weight of everything he lost. Effective immediately, I am stepping down as CEO of Stewart and Palmer Consulting. The board has appointed an interim leadership team to oversee the transition. I muted the TV as Victoria stepped into my office, her expression unreadable but the gleam in her eyes unmistakable. Caught the broadcast? She asked. I nodded, setting the remote down. How bad was it? She sank into the chair across from me, legs crossed, her voice calm. Worse than I expected. Your documentation from that day, it left no room for denial. Every strategy, every proposal, every client initiative, they traced it all back to you. When the board asked Marcus to explain why he denied your promotion, he couldn't even come up with a lie. I took a sip of my coffee, brewed exactly the way I liked it. A small luxury, but one that felt symbolic. And the clients? I asked. Victoria smiled. Once Wilson Manufacturing and Johnson Electronics pulled out, it was a chain reaction. Everyone realized they hadn't been working with Stewart and Palmer. They'd been working with you. The board couldn't spin that. My phone buzzed again. Marcus just resigned. Stocks down 30% since opening. David. I set it down and turned toward the skyline. The city glittered with possibility. This was never about revenge. It had always been about building something better. A place where hard work was recognized. Where talent didn't hide behind titles. Victoria cleared her throat. There's one more thing. John Palmer called this morning. He wants to meet. My brow lifted. About? A possible merger. Stewart and Palmer is hemorrhaging clients, morale, and market share. They need a lifeline. And you're it. I leaned back in my chair, letting the irony wash over me. The former secretary now had the power to determine the future of the company that once dismissed her. Schedule the meeting, I said. But make it clear, this isn't a merger. It's an acquisition, and it happens on our terms. Victoria stood, a flicker of amusement on her lips. Naturally. Oh, and your old office, still empty. Marcus never did find anyone who could actually do your job. Once she left, I opened my laptop and pulled up our long-term projections. Our growth was solid, sustainable, and grounded in a philosophy that prioritized innovation and people over politics. A final message lit up my screen. Thank you, Sarah, for showing us what's possible when someone believes in your potential. Amy. I smiled. Just a few months ago, I was only a secretary in their eyes. Now, I was leading one of the fastest-growing firms in the industry and reshaping the game as we played it. Later that afternoon, I gathered our leadership team in the main conference room, a bright, open space filled with the hum of purpose. Around the table sat individuals chosen not for their resumes alone, but for their passion, resilience, and vision. Stewart and Palmer has proposed a merger, I announced. But we're turning it into an acquisition. Not for revenge, but because we've built something better. A company where skill and integrity matter more than titles. Victoria gave a quiet nod. From secretary to CEO to industry leader. Not bad for someone they tried to keep invisible. I looked around the room at the future we were shaping together and felt a quiet surge of pride. We're not just changing one company, I said. We're changing an entire industry, and we're only getting started. That evening, I drove past the Stewart and Palmer building. Its glass facade reflected the fading light, the logo still clinging to its place above the entrance. Soon, that space would carry a different name. Chen Consulting. Where talent is seen. Where innovation thrives. Where the underestimated become unstoppable. Not bad for just a secretary.